Hi, Dr. Munzu. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay,
Or
Chris.
should I call you smart?
Of course. I mean, no formality between us, of course.
So why do you have the name smart?
It's not smart, it's smack.
Smack.
Yes.
Okay.
It's smack.
Why?
It's my pet name amongst, given to me by classmates in secondary school in Sase in those days. You know, so it goes way. As a matter of fact, when someone calls me Simon, I know that this is someone who knew me after 1977.
Okay.
Because between St. Joseph's College, Sase, through Cast Bambili to my 11 years of study in the UK, all my close friends called me Smack. So when you call me, when you call me Smack, I know that. When you call me Simon, I know you knew me later in life.
Okay. So that's because you were too smart in school.
Well, as I say, it's not really smart. It's Smack.
Okay.
And incidentally, it's a composition of my initials.
Oh.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Simon, Munzu, Anyop, Carl.
Okay.
One of my maternal uncles gave me the name, the first name called Carl.
Okay.
So when you string those four, it gives Smack, and my classmates in Sase just loved it. At a time when every young man wanted to have a nickname, there were people who called themselves Mick Jagger, there were people who said that they were.
So you just put
I just put my initials together and formed a wonderful nickname.
When it comes to modern day Cameroonian politics, both on the political side and at the academic side, your name would really feature high, right?
I suppose so. I mean, the point is that I took an interest in, shall I just say, public affairs.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to call it politics, but public affairs pretty early in my life. Again, let us just exercise of leadership pretty early in my life. In Sase, I was senior prefect of my class in terms of leadership. In Cast Bambili, where we had, I don't know whether the young people today would identify with them, we had a student government together with the Senate and an army and all of that. You know, and I was a speaker of the Senate in Cast Bambili. When I arrived in England to read law, within NUCS UK, the National Union of Cameroon Students in the UK, twice at different intervals. I was president of NUCS UK. So I would say that, yeah, I mean, I have been, I've been keen on leadership, getting involved in the conduct of the affairs of my community since those early years. And so quite naturally, it also played into national public affairs, which, if you like, we can call politics, because there again, I joined the youth wing of the Cameroon National Union, the CNU, when I was in Cast Bambili.
And at that time, that was the only.
It was the only political party in the country. Bearing in mind that the CNU became the only political party in Cameroon in 1966 when I was in Form 3 or Form 4 in Sase. So if you were a young person who was interested in politics and you wanted to get involved, you had no choice but to get into the CNU. So I joined the youth wing of the CNU, and when I arrived in...
That was in Sase?
That was in Cast Bambili.
Cast Bambili.
Okay. But when I left Cast, incidentally, within a year of my arrival in the UK, the CNU established 2 foreign sections. Okay. One in France and one in Great Britain. So naturally, as an extension of my involvement in the party from my Bambili days, I joined the CNU in the Great Britain section. You know, so yeah, so in a way, and I've been interested in public affairs since those early days.
Okay, we'll be coming to the political side of you, which is I find very intriguing, and also could be contradictory to a certain extent. After you left Casbah Mili, you went to Europe, right?
Yes, I went to England.
What university?
Oh, initially when I left Cameroon was to read law as a barrister.
Okay.
You know, and so in England, if you go to read law as a barrister, there are 4 Inns of Court, you know, which are professional schools for training barristers. So I went into what they call the Middle Temple. You know, so you adhere to one of those 4 inns. But the inns themselves do not dispense education. So they have an institution that trains barristers for all the 4 inns, called the Inns of Court School of Law. So I trained at the Inns of Court School of Law in London, and was called to the bar in England in September 1973. Okay. A long time ago. Okay. You know, but curiously enough, as I read law from the professional orientation of a barrister, my interest developed more of an academic interest in legal studies. So upon graduation as a barrister, instead of packing my bags and going back to Cameroon straight away to go and start making money as a barrister, I decided to switch lanes to an academic orientation, you know, and so went on to do the bachelor's degree in law, then the master's degree in law, and then the PhD in law. So the first 2, bachelor and master's at the University of London, and the PhD in Cambridge. And it was at the end of the PhD in Cambridge that I returned to Cameroon and was hired by the University of Yaoundé to teach.
Okay, so you didn't need all the academic profile if you just wanted to practice.
Oh, indeed. No, if you just wanted to practice law, once you were qualified as a barrister, you went home. Most Cameroonian students at the time did that.
That sounds like Abraham Lincoln, right?
Well, I don't know.
He didn't go into any law school. He read a law book and.
No, but these were.
America in those days.
Well, that's not quite the same because this was, there was legal studies, except that you didn't. If you like, the orientation was more professional. Okay. In other words, you read law, but you also focused on litigation and representation in court and all of that. So there were two different orientations. Okay. As a matter of fact, when most English young people who wanted, after graduating at university, Oxford, Cambridge, or any other university, if they wanted to become barristers, they had to go to the Inns of Court School of Law and read to become barristers. Now, if they had a law degree at university, they were generally exempted from the Part 1 and Part 2 of the law of the barrister bar exams, which was equivalent to a 2-year program, and they would come straight into practice, into the 3rd year that concentrated on practice. Okay. So you knew right then that you wanted to go back to your country, Cameroon, absolutely, and teach law. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then you went back to university. But you were already in politics as a student, right? Yeah, I mean, like I said, I got involved in the affairs of my community as a student. Okay. Yes, of course. Yeah, I as a young man, I grew up having a lot of admiration for Zoe Kangaki. And most of the narratives, when I came to know you and saw your political academic strength,
it was rumored that you were being trained to replace him.
Oh, well, I mean, I don't know about being trained to replace him. After all, it's not...
Or prepared.
Or even prepared. I mean, it's not... Politics is not dynastic. At least it wasn't in Cameroon then. Maybe it's becoming now. From what we hear in terms of impending succession in our country. But no, I wasn't groomed, as it were, to replace.
Right word, right?
But he was my uncle,
yes.
my mother's immediate younger brother. I grew with him. He's the one who sponsored my education, both in SASE, which was paid, and in the UK. And of course, I was very close to him as a kid. I watched him, I admired him. He was a very vibrant young politician, as everybody knows. So something there rubbed off. So I wouldn't deny that my interest in public affairs probably came from interacting with my uncle at this level.
Okay. It wasn't planned.
No, it wasn't planned.
Okay.
It wasn't planned.
Okay. But he should have looked at you with pride, right? That, hey, even if I'm leaving the stage, because when we look at our independence era politician, I came to know a little bit of the history of Nzoe Kangaki. I taught his children French in Douala.
I see.
I used to go to his house to teach them French when they were in Douala. And I think he's one of those people who might have gone into politics with the desire to carry his people behind him, and did a lot of things for his people, especially the transformation of his village.
No, absolutely. I mean, there is no doubt about that. As a matter of fact, I'm not saying it because he is or was my uncle, but if you look at politicians of his time and even since, in terms of someone who committed to putting something into his community. I mean, the Nguti of the late 60s, as you know, you are from Eyang next door, is what it was. But by the time Panzo was done with introducing projects into Nguti, as we all know, became completely transformed. And so again, I would say that I got from him this sense of commitment to the community, and the sense that you can put something into the community without necessarily expecting to get anything back. He never got anything out of putting so much into Nguti. As you would see, if you go to Nguti even today, you will not find an estate there, or I said this is Nzoe Kangaki's property. Absolutely nothing. But he pumped so much into bringing up Nguti in a way that other people were able to benefit. And that's why, again, playing back to where we are now, it really, it hurts me. I consider it sad when young people talk these days as if anything you get involved in only because you're going to derive benefit. Yeah. And so even the initiatives that we take now, some of them, they work on the basis that you are benefiting something from it. And so if you are not, they invent it, or he has taken money from here, or those ones that person has paid him money, or he's doing this because, I mean, that's not the way some of us grew up. We knew that public engagement was for service. It wasn't for benefit. And I think I learned that from Panzo.
I've always made the joke about people chipping out of Manu. And always made the joke that if I ever had political powers, I would go take back Nguti and take back to Manfi and take back Lebialem and take back Wudikuma and make the grand Manu. So do you know the story of him taking Nguti away from Manu in order to build his political base?
Come on. I mean, he was a political strategist, so I know that story. I mean, if you come to think of it, here was a Nguti man. Because although incidentally, and I found this even in Sase, Bambili, and all of that, you have someone saying that I'm a Bakosi, I am a Bakweri, I am a Bangwa man, and they say I'm Nguti man. So there is a tendency to think of Nguti as if it was a tribe. But Nguti is just a town. In fact, in those days it was a village. In those days, not now, it's a town now.
It's a town. No, admire Nguti.
Anyway, so just to say that, yeah, so here is, you find this politician who comes straight from university. He wants to contest his very first election in what was Mamfe division in those days. And there was a constituency called Banyangbu constituency. Which was
Monument?
No, to Mamfe.
Okay.
They had the politician representing them in the House of Assembly in Boya then was the late Frambo. You may have heard the name.
Yeah, Frambo.
Frambo, yes. You know, so he.
Frambo went up to the sector that is called Upper Bayang now, right?
Yes, of course, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. What they call Upper Bayang now with Tinto as subdivision headquarters, so was part of what they call the Banyangbu constituency.
Yes, yes.
You know, but this was dominantly Bayang villages. So it was by the hair of the teeth that Panzo beat Paframbo in that election and won. But it was clear also that if he remained amongst these dominantly Bayangi or Bayang villages, his career was going to be rather difficult. So yeah, he conceived the idea to carve Nguti out and establish his base, as you say, his political base, but also bring the Nguti people to their Basosi kith and kin, their Bakosi kith and kin within Kumba, subsequently Meme division.
There in between you have Manyemen.
Yeah. But Manyemen was already in Kumba division.
Yes.
Because Mamfe division, if you like, ended in Nguti.
Manyemen should have not been with, if we go ethnically, right?
No, ethnically no. Ethnically no. But the point I'm trying to make is that Nguti was then taken into Meme division under this operation. And subsequently, when Kupa division was created, and that is another story. We don't have time to go into that now. Some other day we may. But when Kupa division was created, Nguti, which was already a subdivision in Meme, became attached to Kupa along with Tombel division and Bangem division. The three constitute Kupa. So if you like, Nguti has been in Mamfe, it has been Kumba, now it is Kupa. Yeah.
I quarreled some Nguti folks when I think I left my village and had to go take a vehicle at the three corner Nguti.
Yes.
Where right Nzoe Kangaki's house is right there. And I was not very pleased when I saw his grave was just neglected and covered in. That's a man who needs to be honored, don't you think?
Well, that's what I'm telling you. Again, you're exaggerating a bit if you say it was neglected and covered.
I went there.
There is constant cleaning and all of that. But having said that, yeah, I mean, if you get to Nguti, even the place that you're calling, which you say is his home, and it was his home. There is an element of neglect, of abandon. But again, it also has to do with the fact that most of his blood relatives, whether nephews like me, his own children, sons and daughters, and he had 12 children, most are out of Nguti, except for the occasional visit, as it is with many, as it is in many other families. So if you rely only on family members having to render a basic service like that, the hard truth is that they are not there. So, but then, given what he had done for the community, you would have thought that in a place like Nguti, for someone like Nzoe Kangaki, anything concerning him, no one should say ought to be done by his blood family. You know, but those are some of the realities of life in our.
There used to be a very complex story building going to Kumba Road from around Nguti that was said to be his house. It remained incomplete. Do you know anything?
Well,
it was a nice, huge complex.
Well, in Nguti?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yes. It was his house. It was his house, but not his home.
Okay.
I mean, he had a project to build a secondary school.
Okay.
So he started that. It was meant to be a secondary school. Unfortunately, before he could complete the structure, he had to go to Addis Ababa as Secretary General of the OAU. And after he came back from there, he changed his mind about the project. And that building remained like that until his death.
So maybe he couldn't finish it because he was not good at stealing the budget money?
Well, I can tell you for sure that if we come to think about stealing budget money to begin with, it wasn't a common phenomenon in their time.
Okay.
So it wasn't just for Panzo, but I can, without being reckless, I can vouch that it wasn't the ethos, part of the ethos of those who were in government, or for that matter, any public office in those days, to steal. You know, so whether you're looking at Egbetabi or Muna or Elangwe and so on, I mean, if you name any one of them, they didn't die leaving a lot of property for themselves and all of that. Because it just wasn't done in terms of stealing. There were those who were more astute in terms of personal investment. Some would buy, you'll see that a man has a plot in Bota, has a plot in class quarters in Boya and all of that. But those were plot holdings. But in terms of stealing money in order to build yourself, you know, it wasn't
having bank accounts.
Having bank accounts, no, it wasn't part of their thing. And
interesting, you mentioned Frambo, because I don't know if you've read Pambile's book. He has a very interesting narrative about Frambo.
I see.
Well, let's get down to your politics. And I think a man like you, the time we have for this recording is very short, but like we have agreed, talking to you, we regret, one thing we regret, I remember in the 90s, Solomon Egbe had invited us to New York to come record his father, Egbetabi. But when Egbetabi came, we met him and he said he had a contract, he cannot talk to us until after he finishes a contract that he has with the CRTV. So just imagine what we would have had in place now if we had done a recording with him for people to view and for posterity. So I am appreciative that you've given me this opportunity that I did not get with Egbetabi, to extract from you some of the things about politics, the nuances of today, and then your platform of politics, which is CPDM. Now, you were core CPDM as a student. And to tell you the truth, to be fair to you, at that time there could have not been any other platform, CNU to CPDM, for an aspiring political leader like you at the time, because we had the one-party system. So you are CPDM to the core. Can anyone make the transition from CPDM to something else?
I suppose one can. I mean, after all, when you say CPDM, CPDM is an organization. Okay. You can become a member, but you can also decide
to not be a member.
To cease to be a member. So CPDM, incidentally, as unfortunately, as a political party, doesn't have, if you like, the foundational philosophy.
Okay.
You know, so there is no ideological base to the CNU or subsequently the CPDM, but even less so in the period of CPDM than it was in the period of CNU. Mm-hmm. So if you wanted to get involved in public affairs in an institutional framework, of course, you joined the party. Mm-hmm. But then, inside the party, what was the party's philosophy? What was the party's ideology? What is the party pursuing? Now, in the CNU days, there was a semblance of ideology because President Ahidjo, national chairman of the CNU, was keen on giving an ideological foundation to the CNU. Mm-hmm. And you saw that through things like the various slogans, developmental slogans he came up with, like développement auto-centré, suffisance alimentaire, so it says, self-centered development, food sufficiency. There were a whole host of things that expressed the tenets.
The agri shows.
Yeah, things like that. So there were things that expressed a vision of the Cameroon
and the
direction. So you, as a young man interested in politics, especially politics of delivery to the population, would be interested in that. Okay. Unfortunately, that changed a lot under the CPDM. And that too is understandable, because remember that both in Francophone Cameroon and Anglophone Cameroon, and this, sometimes we Anglophones, when we talk with a lot of pride, we make it look as if Francophones were just some savages that we came to meet and taught them politics and so on. No. At the time of unification, in both East Cameroon and West Cameroon, as the territories became under the Federation, politicians came from the grassroots. They were constituency politicians. Mm-hmm. They came by virtue of being elected member of parliament, okay? Mm-hmm. And when you are elected a member of parliament, you have a sense of responsibility in terms of accountability vis-a-vis your constituents. Mm-hmm. And it was like that on both sides of the Mongo. So that first batch of politicians were grassroots-oriented politicians, constituency-based, and had a sense of connection with the grassroots. Okay? Now, and that continued. Unfortunately, from the moment that we went into the one-party thing, now the first few years of the one-party thing, when the CNU emerged as the one party, the first elections under the CNU were still hotly contested, and constituency oriented, so that remained. But progressively, as time went on, we switched from the system where politicians derive their authority from voters, genuine voters, because elections were genuine.
Yes.
We switched from that to a system where appointment. So you work your way, you are appointed a member of the Central Committee, you are appointed a member of the the Political Bureau, you are appointed, in some instances, even Yawunde from the Central Committee and the Political Bureau maneuver for you to emerge as president of the section, of the subsection. So everything derived from appointment.
Yeah, if we were to just cut, because there's a long history and experience of you from a student to the Central Committee when you became a professor. One could conclude that you were really a beloved CPDM young professional, as a professor.
Yeah, as an idealist.
Up to when the the tripartite occur?
Yeah, I mean, let me put it, as an idealist,
yes.
I believed then, and I believe even now, that you could have an ideology, philosophy, service delivery-based CPDM,
okay.
and it will work. And in those early days, we thought that this was what the nation was building, even under a one-party state.
Okay.
And there was reason to think that it was. I mean, President Biya, shortly after he took over, published a book, or a book was published under his auspices, entitled Communal Liberalism. Remember that? No, look, Chris, take the book Communal Liberalism even today, read it, and tell me whether, if we were to apply the content of that book in the governance of Cameroon, Cameroon would not be paradise. It would be.
I read it. Yeah. Singapore wrote it.
Well, okay. I mean, that's why I say, I am both an intellectual and a political activist, even if not a politician. So, for the moment that the book was signed
by Paul Biya,
by President Paul Biya as author, it is not for me to go and find out who collaborated, who contributed, and all of that, because after all, it is also well demonstrated that a head of state generally is too busy to go and sit down while he's still and write a book. So you commission people who assist you. So it's not unusual. However, but once you put your seal on it,
it's yours,
and you adopt that, it becomes your program. Mm-hmm. You assume it. Mm-hmm. You don't, while still in office, put it away and dust it up 30 years later, because that book was put away while Mr. Biya, its author, was in power, and it was brought out and redusted only on the eve of this 2018 presidential election. So what I'm saying is, going back to the question you asked, is that yes, we went into the CNU, CPDM in the expectation that this was the machinery for developing a country, governing a country, but doing it on the basis of a clearly defined agenda based on ideology and all of that. Unfortunately, the way things came to be administered, that didn't happen. And up to this day, unfortunately, the CPDM is not that kind of ruling party. The evidence is that even though its statutes provide that the National Congress is to hold every 5 years, when you did last year, any news about the Congress of the CPDM?
When the president wishes.
Yeah, it is when the president wishes. So that's not. So I sometimes say, unfortunately, and I don't mean to be disparaging, but this is the opinion of a keen observer. Unfortunately, the CPDM, even though it is called a ruling party, does not actually rule.
So, well, like I said, it's a long history.
Yes.
And we probably would have time to talk about it. But I want to take you, we all know how you got into the owner from the, did you attend the tripartite?
Do you know?
Were you in attendance, or your name was just co-opted into the committee?
My name wasn't co-opted into the committee. You want to know?
Did you attend?
Of course I did. I was at the time of the holding of the tripartite conference in November of 1991 or so. I was National Secretary for Economic and Social Affairs of the Central Committee
That's true. How could I forget?
Yeah, how could you forget that? So I was National Secretary for Economic and Social Affairs of the Central Committee of the party. I therefore attended that conference as part of this CPDM delegation. And it was as a nominee of the CPDM that I got into the 11-member Owona Committee to draft the Constitution.
Okay.
So, clearly, both my participation in the conference and my membership of the Constitutional Drafting Committee were as a representative of the CPDM.
CPDM.
Now, what to me is remarkable, however, and in the context of what is happening now, you find all these...
Something hit you when you got to that committee, right?
Nothing hit me. As young people are saying now, when they want to disparage me about... they don't know what courage it took in those days to be attending a conference like that as a delegate of the CPDM, working in the drafting committee as a nominee of the CPDM. And yet say, and this is where nothing hit me, but just to link it to what you're saying, something hit me, nothing. Nothing hit me because right from our student days, we were all conscious that the Anglophones were shortchanged in Cameroon.
So you saw an opportunity?
Yes, so we saw an opportunity. And it wasn't just me. It was that during the conference itself, the Tripartite Conference, practically every Anglophone who stood up to speak on that occasion, for once, Anglophones were quasi-unanimous. Mm-hmm. Every Anglophone who stood up to speak, whether attending as a member of government or a representative of a political party or a so-called independent personality, what today you will say civil society, mm-hmm. because those, incidentally, were the three parties to the tripartite. The government, political parties, including CPDM, the ruling party, and so-called independent personalities. Those were the three parties.
What did Molanjo do for?
He was political parties.
Political party.
Yes, he was.
Vewese was still alive then, right?
Yeah, Vewese was still alive, and Vewese, I think, attended as independent personality.
Okay.
Yeah, but those were the three. When you hear about tripartite, you see, but what were the parties? Okay. Government, political parties, all, including CPDM, mm-hmm. and then independent personalities. And so, but every Anglophone who went to speak raised, in one way or the other, an aspect of the Anglophone problem.
Federation being...
Not necessarily federation, but the Anglophone problem.
Yes.
You know, and when I asked to speak, and I was called to speak from the rostrum of the CPDM, I weighed in very heavily on what I described then as the Southern Cameroon's question. And that it was an issue that ought to be tackled, mm-hmm. and this conference offers us the opportunity to do that. And I was all the more vehement about it because I said then, and I repeated several times afterwards, that as the ruling party, it was the responsibility of the CPDM to take upon it and solve this problem. That was my stand in conference and in the Owona committee. Owona reminded me several times, in the course of our committee deliberations, mais Munzu, tu es ici pour représenter le RDPC. And I said, look, Mr. Minister, dear comrade, as it happens, to my recollection, this issue has not been the object of a debate within our party. So as far as I'm concerned, there isn't an official position by our party where you can say that because my party's central committee has resolved, my party's congress has resolved, out of party discipline, I am bound to toe the line. No. I told him, as you are aware, this issue has simply never been tabled before any CPDM. And therefore, I claim the right to speak from the heart and to speak my own mind.
Still maintaining your affiliation to the CPDM.
Of course, naturally.
On the basis of that, four of you, Anyangwe, Elad, Etre, who was very dogman, I think, in your Actually, in the memorandum that you guys wrote, you came out with a very beautiful memorandum.
Yeah, we came up with a memorandum when the rest of the committee, I mean, in other words, the 7 members, the 7 Francophone members, didn't want to take on board what we were pushing in terms of the need to deal with the Southern Cameroon's question. But then we said that the only way to deal with it is to return to the federal system, as initially intended and as practiced from 1961 to 1972. You know, but when our Francophone colleagues refused to pay attention to that, we decided to put our position in writing, and we developed, I think, if I remember, a 14-page memorandum.
Very well written.
Yeah, that was submitted.
I think I still have my copy. And on the basis of that, at that time, we were already congregating under Dr. Enon Chung on Cameroon Anglophone Movement. And I remember taking that memorandum to Cameroon Anglophone Movement to be adopted as our basis, and upon that, AAC.
Yeah, I mean, the Cameroon Anglophone Movement was a pressure group at the time. There were a number of others.
You didn't like us very much.
No, it's a matter of like or not like.
I remember we tried to get you to come to the UN for us, and you.
No, I didn't belong. I was not a member of the Cameroon Anglophone Movement. I didn't share certain aspects of his ultra-radicalism, you know, but as with my political approach generally, we have to be mutually accommodating.
Okay.
You know, so I mean, I remember I did attend a meeting of CAM in the late Dr. Noncho's residence in Douala. I don't know whether it was before or after.
I am that's where I met Carlson for the first time.
Right, but so the Cameroon Anglophone Movement was one pressure group, a very vocal one. But there were others, as you are aware. Well, Suela to some extent, but even things like the Free West Cameroon Movement.
Dangerous group too.
Yeah, dangerous groups. There were groups, just if you like, in a way, think tank.
Yes.
Discussion groups in Bamenda. So there were various pockets of reflection.
The Bambili free thinking.
Exactly. You know, there were various pockets of reflection amongst Anglophones, and that is why, when we got this resistance, continued to get this resistance within our committee, I proposed to Carlson and to Sam Ellard that we go to the people. And that we should do that by way of convening an all-Anglophone conference. In fact, the question that we grappled with at the time was, who has the legitimacy to call a meeting of Anglophones? Because between the Northwest and the Southwest, there was no common institution. So if you want to get all Anglophones together...
Suela was against any such thing?
Well, especially later on, yeah. Suela was used to try to torpedo the thing. They didn't succeed. But
you know, Suela came because of CAM, right? Suela came up because they didn't want the two-state federation.
Again, whatever the motivation was, I don't know. But because it was... when Suela was created, it was created as an organ to press for the interests of the Southwest, as one could read from the statutes and all of that. But again, the background, the backstory, I wouldn't purport to know. What is clear, however, is that we grapple with the problem of who has the capacity, who has the authority, you know, the legitimacy to call a meeting of Anglophones. You know, so in the end, we answered that question for ourselves by saying, okay, listen, we have 4 Anglophone members of the Constitutional Drafting Committee, which emanated from a national sitting, which included Anglophones, and at that national sitting, there were so many Anglophones who spoke to the Southern Cameroon's question. So we claim the authority from that to take this question to to the Cameroonian people. So now, since we knew that all these various pressure groups existed, we got into contact with the leaders of those groups, in the preliminary consultation, to agree on a date and to convene, and the rest of the story
So, AAC 1 happened.
Yeah.
You wrote the federal constitution. Mm-hmm. Una puts it in the trash.
He did.
And you get full conversion from CPDM. Mm-hmm. You eventually joined LDP.
No, again, that's what you say. That's a different story. We don't have
the CPDM.
Yes, I left the CPDM, but long before we came up with the LDA. I left the CPDM precisely because, obviously, my position, being outspoken mm-hmm. on this issue, especially after
AAC.
The AAC, it became more and more untenable with my membership of the party, the ruling party, which I wanted.
You disgraced them on the Actualité.
Hebdo. So the party which I kept saying, this is our issue. We are the ruling party. So I don't need to be a rebel for this to be your issue.
Okay, that was done then. Because of that, you were done with CPDM.
Yeah, so when they were not forthcoming, the other aspect was that as a civil servant teaching at the University of Yaoundé, by the time this was happening, it was already Yaoundé 2. Mm-hmm. Again, one could see the animosity coming from the Minister of Higher Education, the Chancellor of our late brother, Minister Peter Botabi, the Chancellor or Rector of the University of Yaoundé 2, my head of department, my Dean of Faculty. I mean, it was an untenable environment. Okay. So I decided that I would not only resign from the party, but also resign from the civil service so as to maintain my capacity to speak up. Because as long as I remained a civil servant, I couldn't. Okay. So I submitted my application for my notice of resignation. Mm. In those days, the general statute of the public service required that if you, a civil servant, offered to resign, you had to address your resignation to the appropriate authority. For us university teachers, our appropriate authority was the President of the Republic. Okay. So I addressed my thing to the President of the Republic, but the statutes provided that you had to wait until you got a reply to your offer to resign.
Before you can leave.
Before you could leave. But if without such a reply and authorization, you stopped working, you were considered as having been summarily dismissed from the civil service with loss of pension rights, but with entitlement to refund of your contributions to the pension fund up to that point, to the CNPS or whatever. Mm-hmm. Now I knew, because of the dynamics, I knew that if I left it to them to come back to me and say, we accept your resignation, it wasn't going to happen. Okay. They would rather keep me in there in these difficult and untenable conditions. So I included in my letter of resignation that this resignation takes effect 1 week later. I think it was dated like the 25th of August, mm-hmm. To take effect, I think, like the 1st of September. Mm-hmm. And from that 1st of September, I didn't set foot to the University of Yaoundé anymore. But the part of the story, however, is that up to this day, I didn't get my pension back. I lost the right to pension, but I didn't get back my contribution. Mm-hmm. And so this is how it happened. Now it is after that, and within the context of what had become we had escalated our struggle for a return to federation.
Reawakening of the
Yes. Now we needed a political party to spearhead. It was not enough to have a Cameroon Anglophone movement and all of that. The political party. Yes. Yeah. Unfortunately for us, the SDF at the time was not very keen.
Yes.
Because, I mean, they had more of a national perspective. This SDF saw itself as a national party, not an Anglophone party, but we needed a party that would be the flag bearer for what we're trying to do. That's where I engaged discussions with the late Molan Jolly Tumbe as chairman or president of the Liberal Democratic Party, and Ambassador Fossong as chairman of the National Democratic Party. And it was like, you both are Southwest-based parties, you are both here in Boya. Why don't you get together? Not only them, there was one Chief Oben in Muyuka.
Yes.
Even,
something democratic.
Yeah, even the late Professor
I know the dentist.
Okay.
The Agbo.
Yes, exactly. Yes, he had a party. Try to get all these leaders of Southwest-based political parties. We had several meetings and Molan Jolly Tumbe's home and all of that to try to forge, blend into one party. In the end, it is the LDP and the NDP that decided to go into this venture, and that's why we got them together and changed the name. In fact, the L in the LDA,
the brothers to come and suffer in Boya when you wanted to launch it.
Yeah, exactly, and attacking us and all of that. So that's the point at which I tried to get involved in party politics, because we needed absolutely to have this instrument to be the flag bearer of our federalist agenda. But again, I mean, it's a long story how the usual internal squabbles between leadership tussle between Molan Jolly Tumbe and Ambassador Fossong and all of that.
They didn't speak, right?
No, so before long,
that was quite a concoction you did, because Ambassador Fossong's party, I remember, was advocating for 4-state federation. And then Mola was for 10-state federation, which was along the lines of Suela.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, but
but you came, no, for us, the bicultural federation was your focus.
For us, I mean, and I've not been doctrinaire on that matter, even today. I am not. For me, the fundamental thing is, can we have a government, a state structure whose functioning ensures that we put an end to the domination, the marginalization, the assimilation, the subjugation of Southern Cameroons and Southern Cameroonians.
Okay. And then we moved to, that was 1993, and then 1994 was April. Was it April?
End of April, beginning of May.
That didn't function very well because of the harassment from the system.
Yeah.
But what I take from the system there is you read on the floor the Bamenda Proclamation. And what we can take out of the Bamenda Proclamation is that they still stood for a return to the bicultural federation, but gave the state 1 year to act or declaration of the Constituent Assembly and then moving towards independence.
They didn't give the state 1 year. They gave
Bamenda Proclamation.
No, the period was not specified, a reasonable time. And that was done on purpose. Okay. Okay? If you go and read those paragraphs 6 and 7, which, again, separatists keep throwing at me, you are the one who read the Bamenda Proclamation.
And you cried.
I cried in Boya. I cried in Bamenda because I'm a very...
Did I give you a handkerchief?
Well, I'm a very teary person, and that's nothing to be ashamed about. I'm a very emotional, I can be very emotional, I can be teary, yes. I cried I cried and made cry. I cry and I made people cry.
That was something to, was something to cry.
Absolutely. I mean, especially
even the prayer from that guy.
What triggered it? It was not even the pastor's prayer. What triggered it was the song that exactly with Henry Achingale and others. Yes. The song that they sang before I got up to deliver the keynote address. And at the commencement of my keynote address, I asked them to sing that song again. And man, I mean, if you were there, you saw how emotional it was. All that incantation of all these people that we had lost, our heroes of the past and all of that, what had happened. Now I got emotional. And when I shed a tear, in the hall, people began to shed tears.
Yes.
Now, Amba or separatists or whatever your friends are called, they throw that at me and say, oh, some say, oh, he was crying because he was wondering how he would go and report to President Biya that he did not succeed in his mission.
Okay.
Nonsense.
For disclosure's sake, I will take the separatists as my friend because I am not a separatist, but I'm for independence.
Okay.
Southern Cameroon.
I don't know how you can get independent without separating.
Well, the intellectual argument I make is that Biya already separated by reinstating La République.
Even that, no, again, you see, again, this is why I'm hoping that someday, or maybe it will not even happen because of the attitude of separatists and all that, and the Biya, these two extremes.
I'm a separatist.
I'm saying, yes. You say you're not a separatist.
I would accept the separatists for this
exactly, the separatists and the Biya on the extremes. Those are the two extremes, unfortunately. Because you see, the reason I say that is that the day that we have a real discussion, Chris, you will discover, unless you are intellectually dishonest, that what happened in 1984, what Mr. Biya did in 1984,
changing the name of the country
was not a revival of Republic of Cameroon. Because what happened? 1st of October 1961, you have the Southern Cameroons and Republic of Cameroon come together. They form the Federal Republic. They both agree and put it down in Article 1 of the Federal Constitution that the Federal Republic of Cameroon becomes the federated state of East Cameroon. So what you have is a sovereign state, independent since 1st of January 1960. A member of the United Nations since 20th of September 1960. Decides to relinquish its sovereignty and independence to become a federated state in a new country called the Federal Republic. Southern Cameroon, which has become independent at the same moment of joining La République, decides also to relinquish that independence to become a federated state of West Cameroon. Okay?
So two independent states
came together.
By the implication of what happened in 1961.
Exactly. Okay. And they both relinquished their independence in favor of the new entity they created. So the independent sovereign state emerging from that agreement was the Federal Republic of Cameroon. Okay? Come 1972, Ahidjo and the political elite of the time decide to change the name of the country from Federal Republic of Cameroon to United Republic of Cameroon, still comprising those two former entities. Okay? Come 1984, Mr. Biya does not say that Southern Cameroons, get out of here. I am reinstating Republic of Cameroon, and then now I'm coming to annex you. No, that's not what happened. He simply, like in 1972, changed the name of the country.
Well, does he need to say that? Does it not imply by that action of him doing that he is either? Why would he bring back La République?
No, I mean, on the contrary, you ought to be, if you had a copyright for the name La République de Cameroon, you should instead be suing him for misappropriation of your name.
Okay.
You know, so we Anglophones, when it suits us, we take that shortcut and say that Mr. Biya, no. 1984 was not a declaration of the revival and reinstatement of Republic of Cameroon. No. It was an appropriation, I would even say a misappropriation of the name Republic of Cameroon.
He didn't have to do it,
right? What did he have to do?
Did he have to do it?
What did he have to do?
Let it be like what it was.
But he didn't have to, but he did. But what I'm saying is that what he did was not tantamount to, because this is what Anglophones erroneously and misleadingly try to impress, that it was not tantamount to reviving Republic of Cameroon as we knew it from the 1st of January 1960 to the 1st of October 1961. It wasn't that. He simply took the country that comprised both of you and renamed you. He renamed it.
But he used a name that brings
exactly. But that so we can quarrel about the name. Even Francophones are entitled, if they were to constitute.
And people could give it different meanings.
Of course, people can give it different meanings, different interpretations, different connotations, and all of that. In fact, Francophones could indeed sue Mr. Biya for misusing their name.
Okay.
What happened to our republic?
Okay, fair enough. 1995, you came to the U.S. to go to the UN with Powerful Muna, the delegation, the AAC Standing Committee, big visit. And you left. I mean, whatever happened here, I don't think you might have achieved much by way of the UN, the way things are done or functioned here. But what is significant about that visit is that when you returned home, you put out a document. You were the brain behind a lot of writings in the AAC, because you edited a lot of stuff, what people thought you could carve it well because you're a good writer and you're good with language too.
I admit that, yes, I was a pen holder. I was a pen holder of the movement.
I still have, if I'm not mistaken, I probably still have, even if it's not original, a good copy of what you wrote on the Swella meeting in Labiala. Of course, the Swella meeting. I think you wrote it and you gave it to me to carry it on. And when you left here, another guy who is always very good in writing too, I came to know him through Dr. Yombang. Dr. Yombang, they believed everything he said was Susungi. He did the first draft, which we edited and did a lot of work with, that he did the Boya Peace Initiative, was written by him. And then I came to learn later on that the time-bound program was written by him. And you guys took the time-bound program after you left the US or the UN, and you went back home and you marched across the Mungo Bridge and with the flag, UN flag, with a very detailed program on when the UN was coming to do this and that. And that was all based on independence, right? It was all based on independence, but it was all based on falsehood. But you joined in that? Joined? No. Because again, this is did you carry the flag? If you see, if the next time that you see that flag, right? The next time you see that flag, look at it well. You mean the picture? Yeah, the picture of it. Okay. The next time that you see the picture in question, scrutinize that picture well and see where I'm standing. Okay. And my demeanor. So you didn't believe in it? Not only didn't I believe in it, all you need to do is, you mentioned Dr. Yombang a short while ago, all you need to do is go and refer to an email which Dr. Yombang wrote not long before he passed away, after this crisis had started, where he tells the story, because if I was one telling it, some people would not want to believe it. Where he tells the story of how he, Yombang, bought 2 flags in the gift shop at the UN. After our meeting with the UN official who received us on behalf of the Secretary General. And he bought it for his own purposes, but in London, where we all camped out with Susungi, they cooked up this thing about what we were going to do. What you are saying that the Boya Peace Initiative, the time-bound program, and all of that. This was the initiative, because let's not forget that we have always had hardliners
if you want me to use the term, extremists amongst us.
And they seem to always win?
Not always win. I mean,
Okay.
in Buea, they didn't win. In Buea, they were already there, as you know. So in Buea...
Buea was moderate, right?
But exactly, but that's what I'm saying. They were, out of all the discussion and all of that, Buea was moderate. In our meetings of the executive of the SCNC, where they were very vocal, Youngbang and others, but again, we always resorted to the force of argument, and those were the good old days where people paid attention to argument. And while they would start from that extreme, we always managed to bring them to the center. That's why after Buea, after the conference, we went on to draft what you referred to, the draft federal constitution. You know, so when we arrived in Bamenda, now Bamenda, they had become even more vocal in the meantime. So again, in Bamenda, their position was that we should declare the revival of the independence of Southern Cameroon there and then. So it was after protracted discussion and that we arrived at a compromise.
Okay.
So the Bamenda Proclamation was a compromise between the Federalists who said that, no, we don't need to go to this thing about independence, and in any case, if you declare independence now, how would you protect it? What would you do? Just going and say we have declared independence, what's the meaning of that? So our argument was, let us not act as if we are the only people to whom Mr. Biya has not paid attention. There were many issues in the country at the time on governance. We had required attention and response from the regime. The regime that gave a deaf ear, turned a blind eye. And the Anglophone grievance was one amongst many. So our argument was, let's not act as if this man has been solving other people's problems and decided to ignore our own. So we say, okay, let us give them more time. Let us continue to engage the memos. Let me just finish. So that's why in concession to the Federalists, we said that we give the government a reasonable, we didn't say 1 year, reasonable time period. That was artfully, exactly, no, it was reasonable time. And then to humor the independentists, we said, okay, if at the end of that reasonable time, which could be any length of time, if the government still persists in its rejection of our demand, then the rest of the language followed. So
you gave us a good window.
Yes, no, the window,
a good loophole.
The window was there, and I, as spokesperson, I read at the end of the conclusion to the outcome.
Tearing up as usual.
Tearing up as usual. Yeah, I read the what do you call it? The Bamenda Proclamation.
Yes.
But it was clear for anyone who wants to be honest, among those who are dishonest, we each one of us knew to which part of that composite proclamation we identified. Okay. So when people start to say, oh, you are the one who read, you can see paragraphs 5, 6, and 7, I say, yes, I read the entire thing, but I knew which part of it I adhered to, because I have never, and that's why even to this day, our gripe is not that 1961 did not happen. So when people start acting as if our people did not vote in February in favor of joining La Republique when they could have joined, they could have voted in favor of joining Nigeria. So if we're with La Republique today, it is as a result of the overwhelming of our people. So February 1961 happened. October 1961 happened. It is because it happened that not only did a union come up between La Republique and Southern Cameroon, the United Nations and the United Kingdom ended the trusteeship agreement which bound them with respect to the administration of the trust territory of Southern Cameroon. So you think that 1961 had consequences only for the two territories? Why do you think that the UN ended the trustship agreement between the UN and the UK? Why do you think that the UK pulled out of southern Cameroon? Why do you think that Nigeria, through which the UK had administered southern Cameroons, pulled out? It was a consequence of the binding character recognized by parties other than just the two Cameroon territories with respect to what happened.
Okay.
So when I hear people come up today and say, oh, like, I saw this latest thing that sorry.
Anyway.
So those are the things. And so I'm saying that it is unfortunate. It's unfortunate that the climate created by these people, I was going to say young people, but some of them are not so young. Some are not really young. Which prohibits that we have a proper discussion about the thing. It's not serving anybody.
This started from after that your trip up to this period, because that's when we started seeing factions of SCNC.
Yeah.
That's when most of these problems.
Of course, because then things, in other words, the likes of, under the auspices of CAM and the rest, those who wanted, boom, it must happen. I know. Those who wanted, you people were even, CAM at some point, CAM was even overtaken.
But I've always been moderate.
CAM was, you've always been moderate. Any reasonable person has to be moderate. Okay. Because you don't have, the truth is not always in one place and none of it in another. No, you've got to learn
whether we like it or not, we are divided as a people right now.
Yeah.
I mean, us Southern Cameroonians, whether you prefer to call us Ambazonians.
No, you're not in Ambazonia. I don't accept that.
You don't want me to be Ambazonian?
It doesn't exist. So
okay,
Southern Cameroonians, yes. West Cameroonians, yes.
I am Ambazonian.
But Ambazonia, what is that?
This is the thing.
The day that you guys get the independence and that day you institute, I will come to the inauguration of Ambazonia, but for now there's no Ambazonia.
So you want me to leave you over there when I'm gone?
Right now there's no Ambazonia.
Why would I leave you over there? I'll go with you. Okay, here is the thing. Yeah. So all these things have happened. Long history, which I have time to record. Why is it that there should be this rift and this feuding within our people who still believe in federation, and those of us who think that we are wasting our time seeking federation from? There ought not
to be any feuding.
Okay.
There ought not to be.
Why do people think that you're against?
Oh, because they're intolerant, that's all.
Okay.
There ought not to be any feuding.
So in your head you have room for us to talk like a people together?
Not only in my head do I have room, I have stated that repeatedly, and I did at the beginning. As a matter of fact, that is why because it's not as if one doesn't have experience of these things. I've been, especially during my about 20-year career with the UN, I worked in conflict and post-conflict countries. I have a certain knowledge about how these things proceed, how they start, how they proceed, and how they end.
Okay.
So we are stupid not to allow us to tap into that kind of experience, as separatists have prevented us from doing since the beginning of this thing. Because that is why at the beginning, back in March 2017, I started advocating the convening of a national dialogue on the Anglophone problem.
Was it the same thing with Cardinal Tumi?
I'm talking about 2017. I'll come to Cardinal Tumi. I call myself the initiator of the Anglophone General Conference. Because I started advocating that and saying that it has to be preceded, the National Conference on the Anglophone problem has to be preceded by a preparatory meeting of Anglophones amongst themselves. Because it was clear, even at that stage, that there were these differences of opinion, the end game, and so on and so forth. So it became necessary for us Anglophones to sit amongst ourselves, listen to each other, hear all these arguments that people are putting, distortion of history, of facts, and all of that. But on the floor, we all talk about it, and we find a way. And we arrive at the position that we then take as a people to the national conference with Mr. Biya. And let's no one tell me, oh, how are you sure that Biya would have accepted, blah, blah, blah. You don't engage because Mr. Biya accepts. You engage because you have prepared yourself.
Yes. Like we did the AAC.
Exactly. To make Mr. Biya accept.
I wanted to talk about the board where we're
exactly. Yeah. The GCA board resisting the two shift working system that they try to impose on us.
Yes.
We have examples of victories that we scored vis-a-vis the establishment without we were united without firing a shot.
Yes.
Even the thing that sent the fear into them for them to start appointing delegating the prime minister and others to go and sit with people in Bamenda at the beginning of this crisis. Where did that come from? That came from their seeing the response of the population with respect to especially the first ghost town day, January 8th, 2017. Nobody was firing any shots. But
still being respected.
Of course, and it's still being respected. On a call from Agbobala and Fontemniba and others.
Do you remember what we used to use for ghost town in those our days?
What did you use?
Pots and pans.
Yes, to beat, yeah. You know, so it is, this regime has its vulnerabilities as long as the people are organized.
Yes.
And what we should have been allowed to do, and which we were trying to get us to do, was precisely this. But young people thinking that they are in the era of social media, I have to say that Agbobala, unfortunately, when he was imprisoned in Yaoundé, instead of continuing to play with some of us, because he did interact with us before they were picked up. He did.
You were a lawyer then, right? You were building your chambers in...
I have my chambers in Victoria, yes.
Okay. At that time, you were a lawyer. You could have been part of the...
Yeah, I could have attended that stuff and all of that. I'm a member of FACLA, when the FACO Lawyers Association and all of that. But I mean, come to think of it, I am not a lawyer in the sense of the young people who are going to court every day to make their career. I'm retired. So, but having said that, obviously there were, for things like this, I mean, I was there, prepared to lend them a hand, and I did at some point. You know, the point I'm trying to make is that when Agbobala was thrown in jail in Kondenge here and Fontemniba, now instead of continuing to relay with us, you know, the kind of advice we have given, blah, blah, blah. Oh, this is the social media era. He issued a statement from prison saying that the resistance or the struggle is now to be piloted by Mark Barretta and Tapang Aibo. That's where the whole thing derailed.
Okay.
Yeah, because from that moment, you have no strategic thinking, no policy-based analysis, no this, no that. And then the next thing is the independentist or restorationist or whatever who have been angling you are privy to this. The likes of Cho Ayaba and Ebenezer Akwanga, unrealistic as it may have been, but they've nurtured in their minds this thing about restoring the independence of Southern Cameroon for the past 30 years. You know that. Okay? So whether well-prepared or ill-prepared, but they've been nurturing this. And so they saw this as an opportunity to grab it, and things derailed from there. Now, and then to make matters worse, when they did that, they became intolerant. Intolerant. And if it weren't for that, why wouldn't people who are fighting for independence have the humility to admit that it is possible that they don't win, and that therefore they should have a plan B? And if you are fighting for independence, knowing that you might not get it, your plan B for achieving the purpose you want, which is your people should no longer, your people should no longer be dominated, blah, blah, blah. Is not federation?
Mm.
Yeah.
But it looks more like you come across as saying that the independence option should not even be an option.
It is not that it should not be an option. It is not a realistic option. I've never stopped anyone from pursuing it. Okay? I have never stopped anyone or tried to stop anyone from pursuing their independence option.
So you won't stop me?
Why would I stop you? Am I even capable of stopping you? But I am capable of analyzing your capabilities.
Of attaining what I want.
And seeing from your capabilities that you will not attain it. And that therefore...
You could be wrong too.
I could be, why not? Mm-hmm. But then to say that while I allow you to pursue your thing, even though I don't think that you will get to the end, let me pursue what, again, I may not attain it, but what I find to be more attainable. So it should have been a matter of separatists considering federalists as their allies in terms of their possible plan B. Federalists don't, in order to push the federalist agenda, you don't have to condemn the separatists. You don't have to say stop. No. But from the beginning, it was you are black legs, you are this, you are that, you are that, you are that. And the consequences is that they are depriving us of the time, the serenity that we need as a people to prepare to engage. I don't say La République because, like I said, it's not a bitter, it is the Biya regime.
And we waste resources fighting each other.
Exactly. To make matters even worse, we waste resources. You waste resources fighting each other.
No, you guys fight us.
Oh, you fight us. You know, how can we even fight you? You are the ones who have armies. You are the ones who have, you are the ones who have. You have guns. You are the ones who can set fire. You are the ones. What do we do?
No, Republic sets fire.
No.
We
You
are
do
burning
too.
our houses.
No, you do too. You do too. They do, and you do.
You know,
they do, and you do.
On camera, for the purpose of what we are trying to preserve here, it is. People can see that we come from very extreme. Because I see federalists too and our independence stands now as two extremes.
How is federalism extreme?
There don't seem to be any middle ground. But
federalism is middle ground. It's middle ground between continuing assimilation through the so-called unity decentralized state and breaking up Cameroon through the so-called separation or independence. Those are the two extremes. Federalism is in the middle. Why you say?
What I think is
federalism is in the middle.
If I should succeed in getting independence now, I would have to take all of you federalists with me because you are my people.
No, but of course you have to be.
I will leave you behind with the people.
No, that would be first of all that would be a manifestation of the DNA of separatists, which is intolerance. Otherwise, if you have a country, if you have gained a country,
it's for everybody.
It's for everybody, of course.
Okay, so
yes.
Me saying that shows I'm intolerant.
Of course, because they say, oh, you stay in La République, which I would.
I'm just saying that's not our agenda. Those are people who are saying those things. That's not.
We're joking. No, we're joking about that, but it's a very serious thing.
So how are we going to solve this problem? Because the incivility I don't like between our own brothers and sisters who might still be thinking about federating with La République, and because they are part of our resources to attain independence.
Well, you know, I don't know how you guys are going to establish what you want to establish. I mean, you may have followed maybe about 2 weeks ago or so the furore over. I mean, there are those who very quickly, including Barrister Charles Stark, who very quickly dubbed me a genocide denier, an apologist for genocide. Again, why? Just because, as a lawyer, and he's a lawyer, we both know that every crime consists of two major elements. You know, the act and the intention which you had when you committed the act. And for many offenses, in order to prove you guilty, it has to be shown not only that you committed an act, like wounding you, I take my cutlass and I slash your head, and you die. And the prosecution decides to bring an action against me for murder. For them to establish murder, it is not sufficient for them to say that I slashed your head and you died. They have to show also that in doing so, I intended that you should die.
To kill you.
Yes. So in the case of genocide, it is not enough to show that atrocity acts were committed. Many people have been killed, burning, blah, 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 blah. The Geneva Convention on Genocide requires proof that those atrocity acts were committed against this group of people with intent to partially or totally destroy them as a group.
Because of who they are.
Yes, as a group.
So do you think that has been established with Ukraine?
Has genocide been proclaimed in Ukraine? No. The delegation, mission of investigation and all of that has been sent, but it takes some doing.
People are being prosecuted for war crimes already.
War crimes, yes. You know, much of what has happened in Cameroon easily qualifies as war crimes, easily qualifies as crimes against humanity, for which people can be prosecuted. Okay? So it doesn't mean that they will go scot-free. But when you bring in the specific offense of genocide,
which has a process,
which has a specific ingredient, intention to blah, blah, blah. So when I pointed this out in the course of a discussion last week or 2 weeks ago on the social media thing, and I said, in the specific case of Cameroon today, it will be difficult. I didn't say it was impossible, but it will be difficult to prove that intent because, on the one hand, Anglophones who settled in the 8 Francophone regions before this crisis even started and since have not been molested, they have not been targeted, they have not been chased away. Number one. Number two, since this crisis started, Anglophones who have fled the 2 Anglophone regions into those Francophone have not been sent away. They've been welcomed, they've been well received. Now, in the light of that, it will be difficult for you to persuade a judge listening to you that what is happening there is happening because people have the intent of. Now, this is pure legal reasoning based on the facts. And you are drawing attention to this as a lawyer commenting on the situation. Instead of your fellow lawyers counteracting the argument to show that this can be proven, they say the fact that you raise this means that you are an apologist for genocide. No, you are a denier of genocide. What kind of?
You've been in this position before, right?
What position?
Even when you came up as an opinion leader in '93 towards the return to the Bicultural Federation, there were still those people who were rising up to challenge you.
Yes, now, because...
I mean, those who were still...
No, because that's what we're saying. This phenomenon has been there right from the beginning, so it's not new. What is new is this level of intolerance accompanied by threats, accompanied by violence and all of that. No, but otherwise, in terms of difference of opinion, we thrive on that. That's why we're talking about the force of argument. That's why we're Southern Cameroonians. Yes. That's why the force of argument.
You have always been based on your intellectual capabilities and being a professor. You've always been a leading opinion voice where people listen to you in society. But now you're being thrown things left and right. Do you feel depleted?
No, not at all. Not at all. Because in fact, for every one of those throwing right and right, as I say, I receive 5 of people complimenting me. Okay. The only difference is that because people are so frightened that they dare not support Simon Munzu in public for fear that they have repercussions. And when people think, whether it's in Europe or Cameroonians in Europe, in America, in Dubai, or wherever, they're also thinking about their relatives back home. So you guys, you separatists, have created an ambiance where Cameroonians who don't want trouble upon themselves don't want to speak out. So you won't hear them, those who support me, you won't hear them supporting me openly, because they feel that supporting me, they're drawing attention and exposing their families. If they cannot get them, they'll get their families. This is the prevailing psyche amongst Cameroonians today. But the ones who issue audios and videos and threats and all of that against Munzu are the vocal ones. So you get the impression that, oh, no, I don't move around feeling that people are not listening to me. No, people are listening to me.
So as a hardcore Ambazonian, I must be very courageous taking this risk to be in camera with you, right?
No, why? No,
I mean, from what you just said.
No, I mean, it depends upon how your people will interpret it. If sitting with me, if sitting with me, you are exposing yourself to the possible charge that you have softened up.
And you are a federalist, right?
It's possible. But that's all for me to say.
I can never be a federalist, right?
I don't know about that. Why not?
Amazonia, I can be a federalist.
Why?
With La Republic.
No, why not? Why not? I mean, you have to. I believe that you have a sufficient sense of integrity to honor what your people.
The independence people.
No, the population of Southern Cameroons.
My people.
Yeah, the population of Southern Cameroons in 1961, the choice they made. You have a choice whether to respect that or not to respect that.
Okay.
Yeah,
La Republic disrespected that. That's why we want to leave.
Well, I don't know about La Republic having disrespected that. Again, I wouldn't, like you, make any confusion between a regime which may pass tomorrow.
Of course.
And a nation and a people. I don't make that.
What you just said is very important. Yeah. And even as a person seeking independence, that is my own fight too within my own camp. About us taking into consideration that we cannot take the Francophone people to be our enemies.
Of course not.
Well, Dr. Munzu, smack. Well, this is just the beginning of the recordings that we agreed on to leave something. I know you're writing too, and you might be doing books, but if you get tired, some of these things too are very, very invaluable if we can keep them for future generations, for students, and for other people to know. So thank you for our first edition. Let's see how this goes, and then we would by your availability, we would schedule other ones to do other recordings, because there are a lot of things that we left out because of the time. I really want to bring it together to the animosity of feuding that is going on. And it doesn't matter right now, it doesn't matter whether you're a federalist or you're a sellout or a blackleg or even people who are totally committed and sacrificing for independence. We have been victims to all the unruliness and all the incivility. And I don't think it makes us look good. It doesn't matter. As Southern Cameroonians, it doesn't make us look good.
Yes,
so I hope that we would try not to normalize that, try not to make that our identity, and see if those of us who can reason well. I mean, you are for federation, you always be my brother, it doesn't matter what happened. I'm not going to disrespect you because you have a different choice on that. I would disagree with you very strongly. I would say I don't agree with what you agree, but I should have enough civility to respect you and to still see you as a brother.
Yeah, well, thank you for this initiative. We should follow it up, as you suggest. They say that in Africa, even amongst the educated, knowledge is oral. So it's good to to keep an oral recording like this. For the rest, I mean, I'm concerned about the level of intolerance in terms of intolerance of opinion that characterizes society today. I don't want to jubilate by saying that, fortunately, before the country they're talking about there ever comes into being, I would have taken my natural exit from this world, so I wouldn't be part of it. Nevertheless, it has to be, my hope is that this level of intolerance would not be characteristic of the country that some people are pretending they want to create, because it would be terrible. You know, let me end where we started with my uncle. I'll talk about it related to tolerance. I happen to have grown up in that political environment I was telling you when my uncle Munzu Ekangaki launched his political career. It happens to be that he was staunchly of the KNDP, Mr. Jango Foncha's party, while his elder brother, so my elder uncle, Panzo was my mother's younger brother, but my mother's elder brother, Ernest Ayompe, was staunchly CPNC. The party of the late Dr. Ndeli. But the two brothers remained brothers. You know, so you don't have to be enemies because you have different standpoints on politics or any other thing. So if we had our opportunity in 1959, as we should have had, to be independent straight away, you think any of us would have been saying that let's give up that independence and go and form a union with La Republique or anybody else?
No.
But those who presided over the decolonization of our territory did not give us that option. They gave us option between joining Nigeria and joining La Republique. Our people exercised their choice between those two terrible options, but the two options they had, and decided in favor of La Republique. So we can't unwrite that history. What we're entitled to do is to say that, yes, they did not give anybody a blank check. They did it on the basis that we will be fully respected, and that they have broken that promise. It is that promise that we have to hold them to repairing. But if beyond that you start going back to, as you are going to bring the UN trusteeship system back, it's not going to come back. So if someone tries to engage a reasonable discussion for us to see that, and instead of listening and bringing counter arguments, you start by calling them names and threatening them, what kind of future is that? Anyway, so
nuance in the old history, we have also a right to write our new history, right?
Yeah, but you write your new history
on facts and reality.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Thank you, bro. Thank you.